Benjamin Garcia from the Locked On Podcast Network, also host of the Ben Garcia. So shameless plug here with my guy, Johnny Venerable.
What's up, my guy?
One of the nicest dudes who is also at times, I'm like, Johnny, I think we're fanboying a little too hard here. I'm just kidding. No,
okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But Johnny, sometimes I see in the comment section, you'll go after teams, and still people will be like, oh, why are we defending Kyler? So this is my way of defending you, that you guys are one of the few people that help hold this team accountable, which is why I love to have guys like you, Bo Brock, on. You know, let's start here with Kyler. I talked about this with Bo Brock yesterday. It'd be really interesting to get your perspective.
Sure.
Kyler Murray, a guy after week 10, week 11.
Yeah.
Interception after bad interception after bad interception. Is Kyler Murray just not a guy that can play for a full season and be consistent? Because as much as I've defended the guy, at some point I have to be like, listen, it's the same results over and over again, and we can't blame Cliff this time like I did last year.
You know what? It's a hard reality. It's a hard truth that Cardinal fans, myself, have to come to grips with. I was maybe naive in thinking entering this year, you know, if you had told me Kyler Murray was going to play all 17 games, I would say Cardinals are a playoff team. He's going to put up robust statistics. And while he played all 17 games for the first time in his career, I mean, he was a big reason why, maybe the reason they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, the passing game was just atrocious after the bye. And you can sit here, and I've been critical of Drew Petzing and his usage of Marv. I thought Michael Wilson should have been afforded more targets. But when you lose Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle, in that fashion, your season was basically done. And then the Carolina game getting outplayed by, you know, Bryce Young. Like, that's the beauty of the NFL. Like, that's why I love covering it. It's just a cut and dry results business. And there were not enough explosive plays to get them over the top in the second half. And I thought, 6-4 pre-bye, I'm like, this is it. He's on the right trajectory, and it just didn't work out. So, long story short, man, like, I think this is the year where he either has to get them to the playoffs, he's got to put up big numbers, or they're going to be in a position where maybe they add somebody else. And they could do that as early as this offseason, too. Like, if you told me they are going to take a quarterback, end of the first round, second round, like, that wouldn't surprise me.
You know, the whole idea of taking a quarterback, I've been someone as well who has been somewhat critical about potentially drafting a quarterback third, fourth round. A guy I really like is Jackson Dart, because you said it, that Carolina Panthers game. Yeah. Kyler Murray's got James Conner for most of that game, Trey McBride. Right. Michael Wilson's a heck of a number 3. And we watched Bryce Young outduel him with a guy I met outside getting an Uber and no one's around him, and Adam Thielen. He quickly snapped a photo with this guy.
Cooper Rush also lit up that Panthers defense the week before for 3 touchdowns, too.
And you talk about, at the beginning at training camp, you and I were there. The talk was the defense is not going to be great. Whatever they give you, you're just going to be excited that you get.
Yeah.
How much of the defense do you hold accountable, and how much of it is Kyler, and how much of it is Petzing? Like, where is the blame pie here for the
100%
season?
100% on the offense. I put no blame on the defense. The defense is one of the lowest paid units in the NFL, and it overachieved. ESPN, and we talked about it ad nauseum on our show, predicted the Cardinals to have statistically the worst defense in the NFL last year. They were 15th in points per game. They were tremendous after the bye. They easily played well enough to beat Seattle. They played well enough to beat Minnesota at times, and certainly the Rams game. So, did they have a clunker against the Panthers? Yeah, but they also shut them out in the second half. This defense, I mean, they go out and add a Myles Garrett. They go out and add a bunch of key free agents, take a first-round edge rusher. Like, that's a defense that's going to finish, I believe, top 10 to 12 in the NFL.
Totally believable.
And so, it's all on the offense. The offense, like, we're sitting here, and people are asking for changes. I mean, I don't know what changes people are expecting to happen. The offense is the offense. Skill players are intact, running backs are intact, tight ends, 3/4 roughly of the offensive line, your quarterback. Like, I think that's where a lot of Cardinal fans are just like, I don't know what's going to be different next year. And so what has to be different is Petzing, JG, Kyler Murray get in a room together and figure out how to fix this passing game, because it's just not good enough. We all know they can run the football. I'm not familiar with him. We all know they can run the football. I think they've, in a lot of ways, upgraded their coaching staff this offseason. I know we're disappointed about Clayton Adams. We broke the news about Justin Fry on our show. Like, I think that's a big-time addition.
You did, individually.
Yeah, so I do think at the end of the day, like, the infrastructure of the offense is good enough. And here's what I will say, Benjamin, and this is a hard truth for me as a Kyler Murray supporter. I mean, people around the NFL laud Drew Petzing. They like him a lot. People around the NFL know big-time skill players with the Cardinals. Like, at some point, man, you got all the ingredients. I can defend you when Keim is having malpractice with the roster and Cliff's not ready to be a head coach, and you're out there with Farrell, Cooper, and spare change at receivers.
Yeah.
This is indefensible now. You gotta perform.
Yeah, it is. You talk about Steve Keim.
Yeah.
I want to kind of shift it over to Monty Ossenfort.
Yeah.
I think he's a very capable general manager.
Yeah,
I
for
really
sure.
like Monty. I think even last year's draft, he got a little bit of flack because I thought the draft last year was fine. It wasn't as superb as last
Right.
year. I don't think it was indefensible last year for the Arizona Cardinals to kind of sit out free agency.
Okay, sure.
Because free agency is oftentimes fool's gold. It's really hard to rely on that. This year, he's got to be active.
Yeah.
Is there a guy, is it a Myles Garrett that you're like, you got to go get? Whether it's Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, that's not even free agency guys. Guys got to trade for.
Yeah, I think.
Sweat.
Yeah, I think if you're asking me like my preference, well, first of all, we got this pretty well sourced. Like they called on Myles Garrett, they called on Max Crosby at the trade deadline. They put out some floater offers and didn't come to grips with a deal, obviously. But Benjamin, at that time they were 6-4. It was a different reality. They thought they were doing this, and they created at the end of the year. So does a Myles Garrett, does that move warrant the Cardinals in their space right now? I think you could see both sides of the argument. You could also make an argument to say this is a robust front seven class. Are we better off going a Sweat, a Reddick in free agency, and then taking another pass rusher at 16 or another disrupting defensive tackle and just stockpiling for years to come? Myles in particular, listen, would I love Myles Garrett in Arizona? Absolutely. Do I think the Cardinals are in a position, given their rebuild, where like that one player is going to put them over the top? I don't think it makes them a Super Bowl contender. I think he helps them get to the playoffs. Well, we saw that with J.J. Watt, and there was a ceiling to that, right? Yeah. So I just feel like Milton out of Philadelphia, there's a couple defensive linemen in free agency. If it was me, I'd go and pursue Trey Smith at left guard. I'd go out and get the best players that are available, that are not going to cost me draft capital right now. Max Crosby's got a walking boot. He's walking around here. Is he fully healthy?
Yeah.
Myles Garrett's been hurt in the past, so I'm so impressed with Ossenfort for the most part in the draft. I didn't love the Tip Ryman pick. Their third round last year was a little kooky for me, but his meat and potatoes, Max Melton, Darius, Marvin, Paris, early picks, let him do more of that. Go out and get the best available defensive lineman at 16. Hell, run it back in the second round, and just give your Nick Rawls, JG cornerstone defensive players to grow with, because I just feel like Myles Garrett's almost 30 years old. The Cardinals want to open up their window, not shrink it.
It's exactly my point when it comes to a guy like Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a guy that I want the Cardinals to spend high draft capital on because he's 30. It wasn't like Chandler Jones when he was 26 and they stole him from the Patriots. Like both those kind of guys. Let's kind of just finish it up here with Kyler. Last year I said make or break. Last year I know Bo said last year was make or break. I guess we're running it back. Is it make or break again for Kyler?
It is, and it's a byproduct of who's available at quarterback. I think if it's a quarterback class like last year, when there's 4 or 5 guys, like next year projects to be, I think we're mocking QBs. I think we're talking about guys that are available to them to pursue in a trade-up scenario. This year, it's like I think I am warming to the idea of adding a player on day 2 to come in and develop behind Kyler Murray. And if Kyler Murray doesn't like that, maybe it lights a fire under him. Maybe we see a better version of K1 next year, and it's just like, okay, now Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or whomever they would fall in love with hypothetically could come in and do the job without doing the job, so to speak. But if they feel like these guys are not any good, and the league's going to tell us that, like Cam Ward and Shador Sanders aside, if we start getting reports like none of these guys can play, they've got rag arms, they're late day 2, early day 3 guys, then don't even mess with it. But what you don't want to have happen, and this we could be on a collision course for this, Kyler Murray flames out this year, and then the Cardinals are then lumped in with all these other teams that need quarterbacks next year. And we know they're not going to be terrible. They're going to be 500 or better, hopefully. So it's like, how do you secure a guy then when you've got a target on your back? I think they're in an advantageous spot this year, assuming they like one of these guys, to pull a Kansas City with Mahomes and Alex Smith, Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. If you told me, Benjamin, that they love Jackson Dart that they thought he could be a franchise quarterback, and I don't have any insight on this, and they traded down from 16 and like took him at like 20, people would be up in arms, but you know what? I would get it and I would support it because it's the most important position. And I think Jonathan Gannon is aces as a head coach. He can't survive if he doesn't have continuity at that position. So that's where I'm at. We're going to have a better idea when we get to the combine if these guys are players. Can they play? Like I want to wrap my arms around Jalen Milroe. And then I watch him at the Senior Bowl, and then we see some of the highlights last year, and it's like, I don't know. He's not Jalen Hurts. Not yet, anyway.
You know, I said last question. I'm going to lie really quickly.
Yeah.
Are you out on Kyler Murray?
No, I'm not out.
Okay, there you go. So neither am I, because I believe you can't flip-flop. You can't be in or out. You got to pick. So I'm still in.
We're year to year.
But why is it? Because I've talked with Trevor Sikkema.
Yeah.
I've talked with Kevin Clark. I've talked with everyone.
Yeah.
No one's out on Kyler.
I think it's
why?
Because we live in Arizona and live and die by it here every game, and I think people didn't expect much from the Cardinals this year, and they just kind of looked up at the end of the year like, oh, Cardinals had a nice year, and Kyler played all 17 games, and then in all actuality, you know, unfortunately, he was one of the reasons why they didn't get it done against. Yeah. They got swept by Geno Smith again. I mean, those were games you had to take care of before the end of the year. So, to me, it's like 2-5 post-bye, and one of those wins is against the Patriots, and the other is against sleepwalking, dead Niner team. Like, it's just not good enough. And listen, Kyler Murray, we've carried the water for on our show for years. But at the end of the day, when everything else is going well, and then all we need is him to perform, and he doesn't perform, like I'm not going to sit here and tell people that what they're watching isn't what is actually happening.
You know, the reason why I bring up you guys oftentimes in my show, that being Bo Brock, that being you, Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals, not only do I love what you guys do, I think you guys hold the team down, I think you guys do a great job. These guys are approachable. They are great dudes, and people have told me that from before, and being able to meet with you guys has been a pleasure. This week, how's been New Orleans for you?
It's great, man. We got after it 2 nights ago.
Yeah, were you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bo was stumbling and he was barely made it to his seat the other day.
He's doing well. We got him hydrated.
Got him some ibuprofen.
Walking
IV too. Yeah. Listen, I got a few of that in my pocket if the guy still needs it. But
you know what? We took it easy last night. Got some tremendous seafood on Bourbon Street, and then tonight
I got to check out Bourbon.
Yeah,
I haven't been there yet.
It's good.
I'll do that tonight.
You know what? Tonight we'll get back after it. I think.
You know,
I think we'll get after it.
My guy Joe Diego was like, you need to have Bo show you Bourbon Street. And I was like, why? And he goes, because there'll be things you can't unsee. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go anymore. So anyways,
it's pretty tame.
Johnny Venerable with that yesterday you guys saw with Bro Brock, PHNX Cardinals. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, everything that they do. Good dudes, great content. Johnny, thanks again.
Thanks, brother.
Yes,
Good
sir.
to see you, man.